welcome to the show, Sasha. Very happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Nice. So today we're talking about your movie. I was going to say short movie, but it's not really a short movie, is it?
No, it's quite long.
It's quite long, but very entertaining. It's called Tummyache.
That's right.
And I really enjoyed the journey you took me on in that movie. It was never what I expected of it. Like the way it ends, the beginning, the middle, the end, it was a ride.
You know what happens to a 15-year-old who gets famous?
You are a sexy Russian spy from E4.
And I really enjoyed the way it was shot and the way it was edited. Like it shows that you are a movie lover, like you enjoyed it. And there's a labor of love, because there were a lot of shots.
Yeah. Thank you. Really, I appreciate it. It means a lot to me.
Talk about the journey of making that.
Sure.
It's something quite.
Well, I wrote the script when I was like 19, 20, and I was studying in London at the time, and I have a sort of partner in the business, like my best friend who I founded a company with, and I approached him with this idea of doing a feature, and we only have done like a play together, at the Camden Fringe, so it was a huge step up, and I guess we put it to ourselves, like if we say we have to do it, then we have to try, and if we try, then we might do it, and we don't have a feature right now. But if we try, we might have one, and if it fails, then we'll just be where we are now anyway. So, and we made it pretty. It was self-funded, like shot for nothing really. I mean, we borrowed clothes, apartments. Like it was just a big amount of will and determination in that original sort of shoot. And then afterwards, I kind of took a long time just like editing the footage by myself. And about like 9 months later, I realized that we need to kind of do some reshoots.
Okay.
And I had some ideas of like additional scenes that I wanted to do.
What scenes did you reshoot?
Well, I kind of that whole beginning sequence in the forest.
The very
yeah. So that was a kind of shot in 2020 actually.
Okay.
And I mean after that it was quite quick. Like we did the edit after that in like about 3 months, and I brought someone on, Tatiana Rhodes, who's really an amazing editor, and starting from that first lunch at the British Library with my friend Ishan to sitting here with you now. I mean, it's a crazy journey, but I think it's still happening in a way, because we have like I told you earlier, we have a premiere in Peveragno in Amicordi International Film Festival. We've been really lucky to get a screening there in June, and we're hoping actually to do a couple of screenings in London this summer as well. So
that's really, really good, man. Very impressive. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
So it's interesting that you shot the very first scene, the end. Like that's one of the later things you added, because it really was foretelling a lot of what would happen in the movie.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that, because I think it's sometimes easier to do the beginning after you've done everything else.
Because you've had different eyes. You've seen the edit. You're looking at the edit and you're like, this would make more sense here.
And the way I look at it, like film and just art in general, you never really. I think that in the best case, you shouldn't know what you're gonna get at the beginning. It needs to kind of like come to you, unravel itself.
Yeah.
And I think that like you said, like the beginning, it changes depending on how far you've gone on this journey. And then once you're at the end, you've like seen all these different ways it can go. You can actually more authoritatively say this is how this should be the first thing an audience sees in the film. Yeah.
It's really interesting how the characters change, the character arc. Like you think they're one way, and then they're like, oh, they're different, and they're like, or one way is just they're straight-laced all through, and at the end, it's just like the lady director, I can't remember her name, with the really big fuzzy head, where she just sort of...
Well, don't give it away,
it's
Spoiler
It's really
alert.
interesting how you really think you know a character. Like even the romance in there, I wasn't expecting it. Like that was like, oh wow, and it was very. It was not a. It was not made to be a big deal, apart from obviously the brother, but like, it was just a simple story that was just told in such a simple way, but a very beautiful way.
Really, thank you. And I think my intention was not that this would be some detailed character study. Like I wanted it to be almost like real life, because you don't really know.
It really felt like a documentary sometimes. Yeah.
Thank you. You're flattering me.
It's true. I enjoyed it. I really I wasn't sure of what I was watching. Also, the genres. You were just moving from like mysticism in the beginning, mystical. I don't know what's the word I'd use for that. And then it goes to drama, and then it's comedy, and then it's like thrillerish, and then like horrorish actually. You just move through so many genres, and it was interesting.
Yeah, like life, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I like the characters. I like the use of colors, like the I can't remember their names. I'm so sorry. With the red lipstick, the red color to sort of connote seductress of sexuality, and also the contrasting character. Sorry, I'm talking a lot more than.
Don't worry. I'm very happy to hear all this.
The contrasting characters where sorry, I don't know, but the two main leads, their names.
Misha and Theo.
Theo is a rich boy, right?
He's a prince, yes.
Yeah. So Theo is this his character is just a typical playboy. And Mish is a somewhat recovering playboy. He's coming out of that lifestyle. And so you have this, and you know what's so crazy? Like when the first 30 minutes of it, I was like, wow, this is interesting. Misha, who is, he's gonna be a good influence to Theo. It's like, this is really nice.
Hey, expect the unexpected, But I have to say, like the color you mentioned, it's really, I have to credit our wonderful DPs, and I say DPs because we had two. We had Richard Osborne, who worked throughout our initial 2018 shoot, and he did the majority of the scenes. And then in the reshoot process, we had another wonderful DP, Magda Kovalchuk, who is she's very, she has a particular experience and expertise in documentary filmmaking. And at the same time, her work is extremely aesthetic. I mean, her movie Cow, she shot this movie Cow by Andrea Arnold. It was at Cannes Film Festival 2 years ago. And working with both of them, I really learned so much. And I think the best decision I made was just to say yes, and I think the result is there. And my hope was to make a movie that feels alive and feels unstaged, but also to have this really beautiful aesthetic component. And what you're saying is very great to hear, because it sounds like that's how you see it too.
Awesome. It probably seems validating. He got it. He's like, I got the drift of the intent behind the movie. And the movie has won so many awards, 12.
Yes, I think it's now 14.
Wow. How does that feel to just have your content be sort of accredited and just giving it flowers?
Amazing.
And this is your first film?
My first feature, yes.
Wow. So tell us your journey in terms of getting this together. How did this all come together? How did you get the crew, the cast, and all of that?
Sure. Well, like I said, it all began really with the lunch with my my best friend, my brother Ishan Deshpande, who he currently works at Harbottle in Lewis as an entertainment lawyer. But we met back in university together, and I kind of approached him. The first time we met, we went for a beer, and it was in the context of this rehearsal for a play we were doing with the university, and he, being very outgoing and open and warm person, he sort of invited everyone in the rehearsal for drinks afterwards. And I hadn't known him at the time, and I just was like, of course, yeah, I'll go. And then at the end, an hour later, I was the only one who still wanted to, everyone else kind of, I actually need to run off. And then we just ended up having drinks, and he was about to graduate, and I was in my first year. And I told him what are you doing this summer? You want to produce a play? And he was like, no, I don't want to do it. You know, it's my last year. I want to chill. And then I sent it to him, and he liked it, and we did it. And then, you know, that was like very small scale, and like.
Is that Mitch or Theo?
Sorry?
This person you're speaking of, is that Mitch or Theo? Or is neither of them?
It's the producer of the film.
Okay.
It's not the,
not the actors, okay.
No. No, I'm just giving you sort of like
backstory.
Too much backstory maybe. But anyway, like it came together when me and Ishan, we decided, okay, we have to make this happen. How are we going to make this happen? And then it just sort of becomes a bit more manageable because, I mean, there's so many different ways to find crew and cast. I mean, a big shout out I should make is to Mandy.com. Because Mandy, we've used them in so many projects since, and like you can find anybody there, you know, and pretty much all of our cast most of our cast came from Mandy, and not all but most, and the crew we found through you know, Facebook groups. I mean, we didn't really know anyone. We just had to basically like play everything by ear, you know, and gradually we got some like money from you know, my parents and we like planned a budget and shooting, and I guess the whole thing was just that I wrote the script and everything else was supposed to like kind of just work itself out, like not like on its own, but you know, it's one of those things that you don't know how you're gonna do it, but you know that you have to do it, and then you find a way.
Wow, sorry.
Are you doing your taxes there or something?
I got distracted by the studio.
No worries.
About the fire extinguisher, it needs to be somewhere else. Anyway, sorry about that. Like, what am I getting fired with this?
It's an important matter.
So in terms of the characters, you wrote, produced, and directed this, right?
Yeah.
So how did you? Was it based on people in your life, or like where was the inspiration from?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was going to uni in London, and I was living in London, and all the people in the movie, they are in the same situation, really. They're students in London, and I think, you know, I wouldn't say that I got inspired by any particular like individual, but more that I saw some kind of process occur in different people, and I just wanted to like isolate it, you know, and show it. And the process that I'm talking about is just this idea of like, well, the name Tummyache, it comes from this, I guess, anxiety, right? Like young people today have a huge abundance of anxiety. And I think, well, my statement with the film was that it's about their inner potential and the sort of very difficult and convoluted path to realizing it. And how many temptations there are on the way. And I think very useful for me at the time was the myth of Icarus. You know, the one where...
Flying too close to the sun.
Yeah, exactly, because you want to, I mean, the intention to fly, it's pure. It's there's nothing bad, but somehow on this pure path you burn.
That's interesting. It's interesting you say that, because the characters, you really do feel like they're trying to make the best of life in that moment. You know, they've had, which everyone can relate to, you know, they've had opportunities, but then what happens after is like, and then what comes next? You know, you have all this privilege or you have all this access, but at the end of the day, you're still, there comes a point where you have to sort of do something after that, after all this that you have. And it's something we all go through. For example, we're coming out of university and just, you know, that struggle of, okay, what comes next now? You know, I had this dream, I have this desire to do this, but like life is lifing right now, and there's so many obstacles. And so, like, for example, with Misha's sister,
Misha.
Like, you know, you could tell, like, she just it was just unfortunate. I like how you like the characters' backstories would somehow come out as the story was going along, and you could just see like everyone was struggling with something. Even what's the guy? Misha and who? What's the guy?
Misha and Theodore.
Theodore's brother. You know, his struggle is he wants to uphold, you know, the reputation.
Yeah.
And you know, so it's like everyone has some like an obstacle that they're trying to overcome, and it's something we can all relate to. So you did. I'm just, man. I hope I have one day someone can watch my content and just be like, okay. Because when I watched it, I was just like, okay, I need to work with you sometime, Sasha. Like, that's what I was thinking. Like, you really told us well, and yeah, you really told it well. I enjoyed the movie.
Thank you, Ola. I really appreciate it. I mean, if I can say another comment about this anxiety problem, I think a lot of it is to do with the kind of absolute, in some, you're imagining your life in the future, and I think the anxiety comes from is that you almost feel like everything is possible, If you only had really a few options, I don't know, but it might be a little easier, like, because if you grow up in like the 1500s and you were, you're born in this place and that's where you live for 40 years and the people they're the people forever, and like modernity implies freedom, right? Like we can travel, we can do anything, the internet gives us all the knowledge we want. And I think that the anxiety comes from that, like you just have every tool in some sense at your disposal, and that sort of makes it like, okay, you have all this, and so what are you doing? And that thought creeps in, and I guess the other problem is that everybody compares, because everybody's visible and everybody like informs.
Especially now with social media.
I mean, it's especially like exclusively, I think, because of social media.
It's wild how we're now even more connected with social media and technology, but yet we're still so isolated in our mental space, mental health. But it's interesting that you pick on the theme of anxiety, and like I said earlier, like it really shines a light on that. But like, where do you get your inspiration from? Like, what content has inspired you over the years?
Yeah, great question. I there's so much. For me, the thing that really inspires me in art, it's when it makes me feel things that I can't very simply explain. Just this new feeling, whatever it may be. And do you want me to tell you my favorite movies?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think the movie that really, like, when I was a kid, made a huge impact on me was The Big Lebowski.
Okay.
And also, I loved Tarantino growing up, Kill Bill, and
that's one of my favorite movies, actually. Kill Bill.
Yeah, Kill Bill.
I said that to you, but like Kill Bill is one of my top. Quentin Tarantino is amazing. Although the last 3 movies he has made, I don't know what's going on with the guy. After the Hitler movie, I think from there, that's where I was just like, what is going on?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think Kill Bill, it's a masterpiece.
It's beautiful. It's nothing like Kill Bill.
And it's so empowering in a way. I think for me the most important thing about cinema is to empower people. You watch a narrative, like for me The Matrix was a huge movie as well.
Yeah.
Because I identified myself with Neo, not in some like direct way, like I'm an action hero, but more like
to save the world.
Well, hey, I guess that's it. Really, you've covered me. But I thought of it like like you can do anything, right? Like that's the moral of that movie, is that you can bend the rules.
Did you watch the newest one?
I did, yeah.
Did you like it compared to the other one?
I mean, it's for the fans. I think only the real fans would have like got a kick out of it.
What do you take from it now? Like
The Matrix?
Yeah, with the newest one. How does that add up to the other previous 3? Like
I don't know, man. To be honest, I can't really remember it that well.
I watch it every time I see it, because now it's on, like, they show it on Sky a lot now. So I watch it anytime I can, and it's really it's like, what I think of it is like, it's like a Truman Show and The Matrix combined, because it just, and it's really weird how, like, as time progresses, or maybe it's just me personally, but like, there's more content that I'm seeing around, like, a lot of this progressive mind ways of thinking in terms of like astral projection and awakening and things like that, because a lot of this this conversations around things like third eye and all of that is sort of being aware of your awareness and that movie, for example, The Matrix, sort of takes you out of yourself, or Neo. It's like Neo looking at Neo. It's such a weird meta movie when it's like. So I'm consuming content now, and I'm thinking it's like perhaps I'm just mentally growing, or there's just something going on where the content is sort of telling me like, okay, this is the way of life where you have to sort of be outside of yourself and be aware of the energies and other possibilities, because The Matrix is, a lot of people say it's a documentary, and and there has to be some sort of truth to it in terms of just feeling like there's something outside of yourself that's bigger than you.
Absolutely.
It's amazing. I love The Matrix.
I'm really happy you mentioned documentary as well, because I saw this movie last night. I saw two movies. I went to the Helena Solberg retrospective at the ICA, and she was there. She's a Brazilian film director. She did the first feminist film in Brazil, like feminist documentary, feminist documentary. And in her second movie, The Double Day, I mean, I loved both movies, of course, but the thing that I was really inspired by was that it was a documentary, and you saw like kind of very almost like narrative tangents in it, and you saw people, and they had a whole world and a whole story in their eyes, that wasn't it wasn't necessary to explicate it like, oh, this person it was more like you're intrigued, and it's funny, I think that ultimately the illusion of a documentary is that it's supposed to be objective, right? And I think, of course, but it's something that is ultimately like impossible. You can't be fully objective with filmmaking, because anyone who knows editing knows that it's your choice how to present. Yeah. Like, you could cut up this podcast and I would, it would be, but my point being is that I think that film, it's so mysterious that maybe the distinction between narrative and documentary, it's not so clear as we think, and it's very interesting. Like, I just had this thought yesterday, and I'm really happy you brought up this about The Matrix, because it's so relevant, and it gets more relevant every year. And I think the most relevant thing about it is that it's not about like we are, this is good and this is bad. It's more like saying like you have both within you, and you have the power to choose which one wins.
I like that. I feel like every director or writer, producer, like, there has to be a personal signature in your content that you're making, and so there has to be some sort of personal influence. Like a couple of recordings I had ago that I had a guest who was the director, and he made a documentary, and the intention of the documentary was to highlight the poetry in rap, and that was his intent. And so he was making a documentary around people who had no prior experience or knowledge of rap. And while he was making it, one of the people that he met had autism, and he could somehow connect because he has a family member that has autism. And the documentary went from just a high level approach of their experiences to a deeper explanation of the characters' lives.
Yeah.
And that was because it was just something that he connected with the autism that one of the documentary participants was going through, and he just switched his approach he made his approach deeper because he connected to it, and he just made it a different documentary. So yeah, there has to be some sort of personal in the content you're making, because I bet, just like how you said with the anxiety, we can all relate with anxiety of what comes next in terms of the content you made. So it's interesting. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to say? Is any content you've seen outside of the you said you saw two. You said there was one about the first.
Yes, the interview and the double day, both by Elena Solberg.
Elena Solberg.
Yes.
Anything else you've seen that's been quite captivating?
Yeah, I just started watching The Last of Us. I know I'm late.
Okay. I've only seen the first two. I don't think I'll continue.
I mean, it's really scary.
Yeah.
I was so uncomfortable, but I don't know, I'm drawn to, like, I guess being disturbed by art, maybe.
Okay.
I mean, you've seen my movie. But
actually, you know what? Yeah, yes, that makes sense now because you really fooled me through the movie up until the end. You know?
Okay.
Because I was like, it's like you know, like you're playing like on the piano, dun, 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 and then after like an hour, dun, you're like, what is this ride? I thought it was just a simple ride I was on. So yeah, I get that. Okay, cool.
I guess Tummyache, come see it in London this summer.
So that's in June, right?
Well, in June it will be in Peveragno in Italy, and in London we are still planning.
Okay,
Date TBC.
What's the journey been like in the festival circuit? How is that like? For someone who's never done it before, like how is that journey like?
You mean like just in general, or
like how is like all the experiences for this movie in the festivals?
Yeah, well, you know, there's a really good resource for applying to film festivals. I'm sure you know. I mean, Film Freeway.
Yeah.
That's. I mean, I can't imagine what it was like before that. You know? I mean, I can, but I mean, some festivals you can't apply with Film Freeway. But I guess, yeah, you just gotta make the plan. It lasts a few years because you have to first try with the top ones, and then you kind of go down tiers. Because most of the top ones, they require a premiere status, and then that means, you know, you can't show it anywhere else. But we, you know, this is our, I think, second year on the festival circuit. We're 14 awards, and we have a screening coming soon, and it's pretty good because, you know, it's not many movies, even that win prizes, they get screened, you know, in the last few years anyway, because some festivals that usually would have live screenings, they just switch to online only, and you know, it takes money to put on real screenings. So, but in Amicorti, we are so blessed. We are among 5 features getting screened there, and it's a really respectable, like very highly regarded festival. It's in its 5th year, but I'm sure it will go on for hundreds more.
Amazing. I want to just quickly go back to Tummyache and were there any specific characters or dialogue that you really enjoyed? Or is it too long ago?
No. Of course. I mean, you know, I know it by heart, right? Like it's burned into me. No, you know what I'll say? I think that you asked me earlier, like, what is it? What about it is like personal for me? I think that I, as a person, and other people have said this to me, like, I guess I'm a combination maybe of like 3 characters in the film, and that's Misha, Theodore, and Agnieszka, which is the director. And
oh wow, okay, that's not scary at all.
You know, it's 3 in 1.
Yeah, but the 3 of them.
Hey, like we talked about, man, everyone has both good and bad. Chaotic and there's a line in the movie where she talks about the dichotomy between Dionysus and Apollo, and
yes, that's not something that I there were a lot of things you were saying there that one has to really pay attention to them. Like, you know, they're not like
it's
not those things that you have to. Yeah, apologize if I said those things, but there are a lot of things that you have to pay attention to. Like if you were referencing other mythological things or Shakespearean things, I can't remember. But like there were things you would reference, you would drop, a character would say something that you have to pay attention because it's coming back. Because that scene at the end, there's a lot of reference that I'm sure I missed that you were foreshadowing in the area.
No, and don't apologize, by the way. I mean, to be honest with you, like, I wrote it when I was 19, 20. So I'm 25 now, and obviously looking at it now, I'm not looking at it with the same eyes. And I think it's true for all, you know, when you like when you watch your content that you made
Yeah.
3 years ago, it's
Sometimes I cringe.
I think it's good though, because obviously like you know we're growing, and
Yeah.
when you're growing you cringe
Yeah,
when you did before.
Yeah.
But I'm really happy with this movie, to be honest with you. I think, like you said, it's I think it's simple enough and complex enough, you know.
It's a good movie. Alright, so what do we talk about now?
I'm completely open to suggestions. Let's talk about the I don't know.
Let's talk about like other movies out now that really move you.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I was really moved by Avatar 2. I'll be honest with you.
Jesus Christ! I just realized the tripod. There's a tripod just standing right there in front of the camera. And it's probably been here for all of my recording.
As in, like you didn't notice it there.
I didn't notice it.
Dude, it happens. It happens. It's better than like finding out that you weren't recording.
I'm definitely recording.
Yeah, that's the most important.
Yeah.
Avatar 2, I think it's insane. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Haven't and I didn't really like the first one.
I mean, you know, I don't even remember the first one. I was like so young, but the second one, I mean, think about it. James Cameron,
Yeah, it's very remarkable.
he directed like 3 of the 6 movies or 5 movies that went above 1
Keeps
billion.
breaking records.
And the guy, you know, he was a truck driver. He was a truck driver going to the university and Xeroxing visual effects essays, like PhD studies in like celluloid and film. And he just kind of became a massive director just like that. And he did Terminator. That was his first movie. Grossed like 400 million.
Have you heard the theory of the Terminator being a prequel to The Matrix? Have you heard of that?
No, I'm sorry, I haven't.
Oh, so
I haven't heard.
There's a lady, I can't remember her name, but she says that she wrote a script and she sent it. It was like a sort of like a competition, and she wrote somewhat similar to The Matrix and Terminator, but it was all one story. And then she submitted it, and the studio saw it, and they broke it into different movies. So, like if you look at the Terminator with damn it, I can't remember their names. Sarah Connor.
Oh yeah, Sarah Connor,
and
John Connor.
So John Connor is Neo, in the sense that, and the Matrix is the machine trying to stop Neo from ever being born.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me it makes sense. It makes sense that is plausible.
She's she's out there. She's on YouTube. You can see she's a black woman too.
And both are about the danger of technology.
Yeah.
Basically. Well, not really just about that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but like I haven't seen a lot of like the last 2 Terminator movies. After the third one or the fourth one, I haven't seen any of the newer ones, the Sarah Connor one, but like the original trilogy. Oof, I loved it.
Yeah. And I think, you know, honestly, I really think Terminator 2, it's like his best work. I think it's apex James Cameron. As much as I'm a huge fan of Terminator.
Is he still the one making the newer ones? That's not James Cameron anymore, is it?
Come again?
Terminator movies, like
No, he didn't do, like, because they did a 4th one and a 5th one, and I don't think he did those. Or he maybe just produced and didn't direct. But like in Avatar 2, he has so many, I mean, you haven't seen it, so I'll let you watch it, but I saw it in IMAX, man. It just felt like a movie from the future, you know?
When we saw it, she's seen it maybe 4 times now. She was so up, and she gets so angry with me, like, how come I've not seen this movie? And so everyone, they're like, one person told me they saw it in 4D or something like that, where they could really feel, is that what it is? Where they could really feel.
You know, I saw the Mario movie in 4D.
I saw
recently.
that, but not in 4D.
Yeah, it was really.
That must have been wild, all the car racing and
it sprays you with water and.
That is amazing.
There's like smell.
Really?
Yeah.
The food too, you can smell.
Yeah, but.
That would be nice.
They only use the smell to show like the dark parts, like the evil parts in the
so
film.
smoke or what?
Yeah, kind of like just a bit like stale bacon, a bit like maybe like weird kind of artificial smell. Definitely artificial.
I need to experience that because that was a really good movie. I enjoyed it so much.
Mario?
I was there with my nieces and kids.
I was with my sister, my little sister. It's such a family movie.
It's such a good movie.
I've heard that the critics are just slating it.
It's ridiculous. Even Bowser's this character was so funny. I really enjoyed it. I didn't know Donkey Kong would be the movie as much as it was because I didn't watch any trailer. I didn't even look at the poster, nothing. I just knew Mario is coming out. Okay, cool.
We got Seth Rogen, put him.
He was Donkey Kong.
Yeah. What do you think of Chris Pratt as Mario?
I didn't mind it. I just didn't like the way Luigi was portrayed. Because I like Luigi. I just like, why is he so weak? Like, what's going on with Luigi? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, he was barely in it. And it was Charlie Day as well. He's like one of my favorites.
Oh. I don't know what that is. But that's the only thing I would change. And then at the end, how did he just know how to fight? How did Luigi that was scared all through the movie? How did you know how to do all the flips?
He's from Brooklyn, man.
Yeah, but
of course he knows how to fight.
You know that little in the little cell they were all placed in, that little ghost-like figure that's like a baby.
Yeah.
I was saying so many dark things with this childlike voice. So I was like, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it just hit all the right marks. Like, audiences love it. I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it.
We need movies like this because
I'm tired of the Avenger movies, man.
Oh, Jesus! Let's not.
I have to go there because my nephew is a big fan and he forces me. Like not just me, all of us. He forces all of us. Me and his mom, we're just like, what are we doing? Very kid.
Let me tell you, I really liked Infinity War. I think Infinity War had an interesting philosophical question at the core, that really made the movie feel almost like uncomfortable.
Is that the one with the cyborg?
Yeah, it's with Thanos, and it's the one where at the end, half of the world dies. I think. I might be wrong.
Wait, he snaps? Is that the snapping?
Yeah, he's got all the rings on and everyone like dissipates and turns into dust. Because think about it, like this guy Thanos, he's just as powerful as everyone. He has he's more powerful, right? And his argument is like, I need to wipe out 50% of the whole universe at random to make sure the other 50% survives. And this is like a crazy, like, whatever, like, Charles Manson logic.
He's like somewhat justified in that he's not, he's trying to just make the world a better place, but at the end of the day, you just getting rid of half of the population is still not right.
No, of course, but, the movie didn't, like, in a way, I thought the movie argued for Thanos. Like, they made his point seem so kind of like, damn, like, well, I guess, someone has to make that decision. And then in the second one, they just go back in time and whack Thanos. Like, there's no philosophical defeat of Thanos, in a way,
just
in the second movie.
Like him, because they feel like his madness is somewhat justified. But that's what I'm also seeing a lot of in terms of content. That's why we like the darker villains now, because we're seeing that sometimes their motivations are not completely crazy. Like, it kind of makes sense. The way they're going about it is wild, but the intent behind it makes a bit of sense.
Yeah. I mean, the anti-hero, like one of my favorite shows is The Sopranos. Okay. I think it's like my favorite show, to be honest with you. Okay. Like, if I had to pick one, it would be The Sopranos. And I think we're, attracted to things that are other to us, things that we don't really know about. And we all like try to be good people in a way, like the best we can. And when we see someone who doesn't have that on screen, even though we judge them and distance ourselves, we're still looking, right? Like, we're still interested.
It's interesting. That's very interesting.
And for me,
it feels realer. It feels more like you can relate when it's just not completely cut out. Like, it's a bit. Be careful there.
Sorry. I'm like an elephant, Very difficult for me to maneuver. But yeah, I agree. And people like aren't very clear cut, right? Like, people aren't just good or bad. I mean, some people are better than others, but I think everybody has different sort of like cards that they were dealt.
Mhm.
And in art, when we just have characters who are moral and perfect, impeccable, and they always act impeccably, then
Like Superman.
yeah,
He's
exactly.
a bit dull.
Yeah, we want Batman. We want the dark. We want to, because we can't relate with
Like,
Superman.
I want to see the Superman where he goes dark in Justice. That I want to see. I want to see Superman murder people. I want to see him mash up everybody. I want to see. That's what I want to see. I want that Superman. People will go to cinemas to see that.
Dude, there's a comic book, I forgot what it's called, but it's basically a reimagining of Superman if he hadn't landed in Kansas and he landed in Moscow instead. And he grew up in the USSR. Not in Moscow, but in Russia.
Wait, I think I've seen that. I've seen that cartoon, yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And Lex Luthor is his main enemy, and he's the American, resourceful venture capitalist. And Superman, he's like the classic, whatever, deity that, the communist dictators created to, inspire the masses or whatever. Yeah, but it kind of made more sense that he would be that golden boy, perfect guy in the context of the totalitarian regime, because that's I maybe we should talk about the anti-hero thing in Tummyache a bit.
Okay.
Just a quick because I wanted the characters in the beginning, to feel like when I was writing it. This is maybe it would be interesting to talk about. When I was writing the film, my imagining was that the characters are good people, and they enter a cruel world that screws them up.
Yeah.
And then when I kind of was editing it, I realized that I made a movie not about good people who enter a horrible world, but kind of bad people that enter a horrible world.
People. There's not one character there that I can say is bad. There were good people. Everyone there was good. Even
Sal.
Yeah, I don't know about Sal, but everyone else, they were just dealing with life. So there's not one character there that I can say this person is bad.
But you're not saying they're good either, they're not. They are, in a way, they are good, but the choices and decisions they make aren't always good. And I guess that's what my point was. They make these choices at the end of the day.
They had to make the choices. Misha's sister had to make that choice because, she just had to. And we don't really know why Misha is, we don't really know what set off his recovery.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know that part. So something did happen. Yeah, something happened. Yeah, so we do know. Sorry about that. We do know what set off his whole recovery journey. But so that's his arc. Because he was in recovery. He's in a journey of recovery, and then Theodore is in a journey of, he's just happy and just carefree. He's just a chill, regular, carefree, rich boy, and he was good. Even the fact, I don't know, when we can talk about it. We can talk about some of the when he says you can be my roommate. When he that was nice. I was like, this is really nice. This is crazy. I would never do this, but this is what people do for. I was like, okay, this is interesting, and that's why the romance was a shock because I was not expecting it at all, and I was like, oh, this is nice, but then even when it was nice, and then he's like, Theodore is still Theodore, despite the fact that this is something real and possibly genuine, and he's just like, well, I did what I had to do because he's like, what? And there was and Misha just walks away, and so it was and then the characters were intertwining and moving from one. It's like we're all shades of gray. There's not black and white. There's no good or evil. It's just we're all shades of gray, and I think that's what the movie explores.
Yes, you said it better than I could.
Yeah, thank you. I was going on a long tangent there, but
no, you got there.
Yeah. So yeah, and the ladies, yes, I thought the characters were really the ladies were interesting. Apart from the blonde lady, I can't remember her name, where you think she's she was so clean cut when you meet her up, and then as the movie progresses, you're like, whoa, yo.
I like that. For me, I think it's great when you're watching a movie and then you're surprised.
Yeah, everything was surprising, especially the end.
For me, I should say like the play that they're in, the Bacchae by Euripides. It was very influential for me when I was thinking of the plot.
What is that? Can you talk about that?
Sure. So the Bacchae was the last tragedy by Euripides. He's one of like the four major tragedy writers from ancient Greece, and he was the youngest one. He was like the bad boy, the young master. And this play, it was his last play. It's about Dionysus. So it's actually one of the first plays where a god was the protagonist. And the Dionysus, he comes back to his hometown, Thebes, and he basically discovers that his the rituals that his followers, the Maenads, do in the forest, these bacchanalias that are very, psychedelic, like probably the first use of psychedelics was there in ancient Greece, exactly. The Ulyssean mysteries, that was also related to Dionysus. But the tragedy, it's about the king of Thebes, Pentheus, who like is tricked by Dionysus to go with him to these rituals in the mountains, on the fields, and Dionysus, long story short, he basically tricks, he deceives the women in the ritual to look at him like he's a threat, like really bad threat, and all the women, led by his mother, rip him limb from limb with their bare hands, this king.
When they realize it was...
No, because Dionysus, he can play with reality. So he sends them, maybe I'm telling it wrong, but he essentially fills them with this rage and like, because he's also not supposed to be there, right? Like he's a man and these are women in them. And the ending, it's very...
that makes sense.
So, I'm just wary of talking about it too much because I don't want the audience to be...
So that spirit entered that person mayhem ensues.
The Bacchae for me was also inspiring because I think it's very... we're living in a world where Dionysus component is downplayed, I think. And there's obviously good reason for that, but I think in our own lives, in our personal like development or whatever, we should very much pay attention to this chaotic and non-rational part of ourselves, because when we are born, we are always told the Apollonian side, but never the Dionysian side. With the Apollonian side being, you go to school, work. And I think, looking back at it, I don't think it's so simple as that. I think that it's much more complex because there's also like societal, institutional influence, and then there's so many other factors. But I think, at least in this text that Euripides wrote, there is a lot of, I think, useful knowledge and wisdom for anybody, today.
Sasha, that's amazing, man. That's you're really dropping a lot of things that it's really interesting to hear, because even I don't know if this relates to what you were saying. Hopefully it does. But when there's this saying of when someone is angry, that's when you really know who their personality is. But then it negates all the good that they've done, and just one moment of madness, and you're like, that's who they are. But I feel like what you were saying was, we're so complex in our personality, like just because we present in one way every time, and then you see it a different way, doesn't just sort of wipe away the other aspects of us that's good. We're dynamic, we're complex, and we have good and we have bad. We're all shades, and we need to give people grace, and I think that's what I got from what you were saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, of course, I think you're talking about also forgiveness. I mean, that's a bit of a next step from what I was saying, but I think, yes, we need to have more forgiveness maybe in our society.
Okay.
like I don't know. But also, I think you're right in saying that people. I don't know. I think people get angry because they have something within them that is unsaid, you know. And of course, it doesn't define them. It's more that they just like didn't say it. I guess it comes out of almost nothing sometimes when you just have this thing and you're not talking about it, and then it builds, and then it becomes something, and it was nothing to begin with, but just because you didn't spit it out, it became something, you know. And maybe that's the lesson here, you know. We should be more comfortable letting out the things that bother us or the things that we want to say, and then when we do that, we are engaging with the Dionysian part in us. Because it's not always advantageous to do that, right? It doesn't always work to your advantage. But if you look at it like I'm investing this effort into my spiritual well-being by not keeping this whatever bad negative energies inside me, and just maybe find a healthy release for it. I think that's what Misha tried to do, man. He tried
I'm really trying to connect that with the characters. That's how.
No.
Yeah, like that's wow. You're kind of deep, Sasha.
Thank you.
I think it's best to wrap it up here.
Thank you so much for having me.
You please come again, and I like the way your brain thinks. It's very interesting, and your inspirations and the things you've read and your knowledge is interesting. I think it would be nice to have you come and we talk about like a movie, like a different movie.
Sure.
Your movies and then other movies. I think there are possibly things that you would see that would be interesting. Your perspective is interesting. So
thank you all. I actually am almost finished with my next film. It's a short film called Conflict.
Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye out for that.
Yes.
And thank you very much for coming. This is the Real Happy Hour podcast.